Hello and welcome in, you guys. We got One Piece, chapter 1155, brief spoilers. Of course, if you guys have not checked out the spoilers for yourself though yet, make sure to do that. It is linked down below. I'll type it out piece by piece so you can check it out there. But here in this video, we are going to talk about all the big bullet points that really just caught my eye. And that's pretty much all of them, right? I mean, how can we not get hyped about a Rocks D Xebec chapter? So, to kick things off, we got Rocks D Xebec and Loki. We're picking up where we left off last time, and we actually get like a Rocks flashback out of this somehow. I don't know how this starts. You know, 1 second it's like, hey, Rocks D Xebec and Loki, yeah, they're hanging out. And then, by the way, here's what happened at the Reverie. Oh my god. You know, I was not expecting to get all of this. So, the first thing we learn is that Zbec ended up kidnapping 5 kings from the Reverie. Why? Well, when I read that plot point, I mean, to be fair, a lot of plot points in this summary, I was just like, wait, why did he do that? But yes, Zbec ended up kidnapping 5 kings at the Reverie. We don't know if he won them via Davy back fight. We don't know if he simply strong-armed them or if he actually just put them in a bag and left. But yes, he did end up kidnapping 5 kings from the Reverie. It looks like he was not another king that was just simply invited. You know, that was my mindset at first. You know, we don't know Zebec's past. We don't know why he was at the Reverie. There was a chance that he could have just been invited. He could have been a king. But no, he just seems like a bad man. You know, now I see why an admiral was sent to stop this guy. It's because he is running amok. So, not just does Zbec kidnap 5 kings from the Reverie, but he also meets Emu. Yeah, that's right. That's Emu back there. Yeah, the Emu plushie came in yesterday, so I think the timing was pretty 1-to-1. But yeah, Rocks D Xebec actually met Emu. How is this guy still alive? I mean, to be fair, you know, Walpole saw Emu, he's still alive. Sabo saw Emu, he's still alive. But for Sabo and Walpole, it was kind of on sight, right? The minute they showed up, Emu transformed, the Gorosei transformed, and they were all trying to kill them. But for Rocks D Xebec, it kind of seemed like he was a guest. He was in the flower room, Emu's private flower room. Rocks was there. And not just that, but Rocks left, and he told Emu that he'd be back later? What is going on? Why? You know, there's got to be something here. Maybe Emu sees Rocks and he doesn't feel threatened by him or his potential. Maybe Emu can't fight Rocks D Xebec in this current place, which doesn't make sense, right? We don't even know where the flower room is necessarily located, but fighting somebody in the throne room is automatically absurd because Celestial Dragon guards are right outside the door who don't know about Emu. So the fact that Emu isn't fighting Rocks in this room, which is even more secluded, is kind of absurd. So it does seem like Rocks, to an extent, is welcomed by Emu. Of course, we do have to keep in mind that we don't have the chapter in front of us, so we don't know exactly what's happening. But based on how the spoilers are describing the situation, it sounds like they just chatted and said goodbye like good friends or something, man. So another cool detail about this scene is that when Rocks is in the room, we actually get a shot of Gunko in the background, who is Emu's servant, which we kind of already knew that, right? Emu, Gunko, they're like 2 peas in a pod right there. But it's nice seeing that the background characters in the flower room are finally not being silhouetted, because we've had multiple characters come into this room who are tending to Emu who are just blacked out. So we now know that it is Gunko. I'm sure Shamrock eventually does this and some of the other Holy Knights too. I doubt Gunko is working 24/7 with Emu. I bet the other Holy Knights also come here pretty frequently. So what really caught my eye here, you know, minus this whole interaction and how odd it is the fact that when Rocks leaves, he turns around and he tells Emu that he's a fan of Davy Jones. Okay. You know, we know that Rocks D Xebec and Blackbeard had a strange Davy Jones connection because they own Hachinosu, which is where Davy back fights originated. But what's the actual connection? You know, outside of just the island, why is Rocks D Xebec such a fan of Davy Jones? Is it because of the fight? Is it the legacy? Are they related somehow? We don't know. And it's pretty insane that we're getting a Davy Jones mention in big 2025, right? Davy Jones, I mean, dude, if you've been reading One Piece ever since Long Ring Longland, I mean, hell, you don't have to read it since then. If you just remember Long Ring Longland, Davy Jones is one of those lines and characters that kind of sticks with you. It's like one of those, will he, won't he, when it comes to Oda. Will Oda bring in Davy Jones, or is that just a one-line throwaway thing? When Luffy and the gang were going against Foxy and they first heard about Davy Jones, Chopper was like, hey, Robin, who is that guy? And Robin said that he was a cursed pirate who I think sunk to the sea floor, and now everything that falls into the ocean is now his. And it's like a legend, right? It's a living legend in the same vein, in my opinion, as the gods of One Piece. You know, like, is he alive? Is he dead? Is he a mythical being? Is he going to come back as a devil fruit? Those were theories that popped up a lot back in the past. You don't really hear people talking about Davy Jones nowadays, though, because it's been years and years since Long Ring Longland. But here we go. Davy Jones is finally being mentioned again. And I don't know where to go with that, right? I mean, the fact that Rox is telling Emu that he's a fan of Davy Jones, I can't tell if that's because it's a hint that Rox loves Davy back fights, which is a fact, right? He loves Davy back fights. But maybe there's something more there. Maybe Emu knew Davy Jones. Because Emu, man, you know, this guy comes from the Void Century, right? If there's a pirate back in the past, Emu would know them. So maybe Emu was like, yeah, you know, out of respect for Davy Jones, I'm gonna let Roxy Zbec into the flower room. You know, maybe when Rox says Davy Jones, it brings back like a weird flashback in Emu's mind. Like, yeah, you know, next to me and Joy Boy, there was a guy named Davy Jones in the past, and he was a madman. Yeah, I do not know where this fits in, but I'm excited. You know, I would love if Oda actually brings in Davy Jones. And what's kind of funny too is that this wouldn't even be the first instance of Davy Jones in the series, right? The Davy back fights, because we also had another Davy Jones type thing back in Fishman Island when we heard about Vanderdecken. Remember that loser? Yeah. We heard that he commandeered a ship called the Flying Dutchman, and that 900 years ago, you know, Vanderdecken the First, he was the original captain of it. And when we heard that, we were all wondering at the time if that guy was actually Davy Jones. Because in mythology, or at least in, you know, in movies and stuff, Davy Jones is the owner of the Flying Dutchman. So there's gotta be some sort of connection there. And of course, Vanderdecken the First did exist in the Void Century. So I don't know, brother. But since we're getting this Davy Jones call in, since we're now wondering about all of this, it just reinforces that we are in the final stretch of One Piece, guys. Everything is coming together. Everything's being answered. And that's crazy to think about. So the Rox D Xebec feats at the Reverie do not end there. You know, already crazy. Rox went there, killed an admiral, kidnapped 5 kings, met Emu, saw Gunko. Not just that, but he also clashed with Harald there. Brother, I get it. I get it. The Reverie is a multi-day event, right? It's like an anime convention, you know? It's not just one day and it's done. No. It's like a whole week. But really, Rox did all of this while he was there? How is that even possible? So yes, Rox clashed with Harald at the Reverie, and according to the leakers, the clash was so strong that haki went all over the place, like what we saw with Roger versus Whitebeard. I mean, I'm not shocked, right? We always knew King Harald was that guy. I mean, hell, one of the first things we heard about King Harald was that not only was he a great king, he was the strongest king of Elbaf. So yeah, their clash being like Roger versus Whitebeard, W. I love it. And of course, I'm not too sure if this means that Roxy Zbec and King Harald both had advanced conquerors haki like Roger and Whitebeard, but let's be real for a second. Would we be shocked if Rox and Harald had conquerors haki? You know, we're talking about Roxy Zbec, a guy with the D initial, a guy who fought Roger and Garp and did the whole God Valley thing, the guy who commandeers so many freaking conquerors already, and then King Harald, the greatest king of Elbaf. Yeah, if they both had conquerors haki, I don't think anybody would really bat an eye. And, you know, one thing that is interesting about this is that, you know, Conqueror's haki is still debated to this very day on how you can exactly get it. You know, do you have to have the mindset? Is it genetics? And here's the thing. But if you do believe that it is genetically involved, Rox having it, I think, boosts the fact that Blackbeard will eventually have it too, or at least the theory that Blackbeard will have it. And then with King Harald having it, of course, the Loki stocks go up. Loki kind of already hinted that he had Conqueror's Haki anyways, but I think this is another nail in the coffin. And, you know, another character that, funny enough, comes into this conversation is Hyrden. You know, if we're saying Conqueror's Haki is genetic, could you guys see Hyrden with Conqueror's Haki one day? I mean, he does want to be the king of all the giants, so I don't know. Hyrden W, maybe? You know, Hyrden upscale? Maybe. So one thing I kind of glossed over, but I'm going to go back to in the spoilers, is that we learned that Zbec was a unique swordsman. Not too sure what that means. The leakers could have gone into more detail, but they simply say that he was a unique swordsman. To be fair, we already knew that Zbec was a swordsman because in the flashback we got of God's Valley, we saw him with the sword already. But as far as him being a unique swordsman, that could mean a lot of things, right? He could have a devil fruit sword. He could have a weird blade even, right? It could be like a king blade where it was like really serrated. And then he could like steal away Zoro's swords. It could even be like a dagger. You know, I don't know what unique swordsman means. Hell, there's even a chance that he could have a black blade, which would be insane. I have seen some people saying that he has a black blade. Not too sure if that's verified or not yet. But if Zbec does have a black blade, where do we even go with that? You know what I mean? Like, there's only 2 characters in the series with black blades, mind you. That is an absurdly low number for the world of One Piece. We're talking about Ryuma and Mihawk. Are we really putting Roxy Zbec at the pinnacle of that too? I don't know. And then if Zbec was a swordsman, you know, how would he even scale to that? I mean, of course, that's not like the most important thing, but still, like Zbec being a black blade swordsman. What? Honestly, I think I love it, man. I mean, we are missing supreme grade blades in the story. We only have, I think, like
5 blades
revealed. So yeah, if we give Zbec that sword, a black blade, that right there is another supreme grade blade that we can mark off the list. And then I do wonder, man, where is that sword today? Blackbeard, pick it up, buddy. Yeah, man, yeah. This is just an absurd reveal. But yeah, we will have to see on the unique swordsman aspect, though. Like I said, it's just a theory that he has a black blade right now. Unfortunately, the leakers don't go into more detail with it. So, you know, the sky's the limit when it comes to that, brother. We go on some more after the clash, and we see that Zbec not only did all that at the Reverie, but he just ends up destroying a gate of justice? All right, guys, Oda, he's glazing Zbec a lot. I don't hate it. You know, I love it, but you gotta admit, the glaze is absurd. Audience with Emu, kidnapping 5 kings at the Reverie, killing an admiral, conquers Haki clash with King Harald maybe, and now another first of feat, but he's destroying a gate of justice. The same gates of justice, mind you, that Blackbeard had to maneuver and open. The same gates of justice that the impaled down prisoners and Luffy couldn't surmount. So it's like, yo, like, that gate of justice is massive. Like, you're telling me he destroyed it? How? Did he cut it? Did he punch it? What are we doing here, man? Yeah, what an absurd feat. It unironically was a giant steel wall. And he broke it? Zbec broke a gate of justice? Yeah, absurd. He also ended up stealing money from Tenryubitos, which, sure, which is going to give him that feat too. Not a big feat, right? But, you know, he just invaded a world government ship, stole it. Usually those ships have nobody strong anyway, so we'll look over that one. Next up, we also learned how he got his crew. And this is huge, because I was wondering why Shiki, Stussy, and Whitebeard were following him. Didn't make a lot of sense, right? I was trying to put the pieces together, but it's like, okay, Zbec isn't a pirate yet in the flashback, but he also has these heavy hitters right behind him. Why are they following him? What does Zbec have that's keeping these guys in line? Well, it could just be honor and pride, because, yeah, he did end up winning Davy Jones fights, and that is how he got his crew. That's how his crew got larger and larger. You know, he's like a strong, more scary version of Foxy. That's essentially what he is. So yeah, that explains why he has so many heavy hitters. That explains why he has so many, captain type figures in his crew, because he probably just beat those pirate groups in Davy Jones fights and took them in. Yeah. Davy Jones fights making a comeback in 2025. I do wonder though what his Davy Jones fights were actually like. Because, while Foxy came up with the game rules and said, hey, we're going to race around the island, or, oh, like, whoever can shoot the most barrels wins, like, it doesn't have to be that, right? Sometimes Davy Jones fights can literally be straight 1v1s, like Foxy versus Luffy. So there is a chance that, Roxy's Davy Jones fights are a lot more extreme than what we saw at Long Ring Longland. I am somewhat of a Davy Jones defender, right? The Davy Jones fight we got back in Long Ring Longland was only drawn out and goofy. One, because the anime prolonged it, but two, because Foxy was the ringleader. If we put Roxy back in that position, who knows what we'd see, right? I think the possibilities are limitless with that one. So now, we also see that there are more members of his crew here in Elbaf. I got a bingo from that one. We see 6 members in total. One of them is Wang Ji, and the other is a gangster named Marlon. So we finally get to see the infamous Wang Ji. We haven't seen this guy at all. We've heard about him. Wang Ji is the pirate that ends up taking over Hachinosu after Roxy Zbec gets defeated, right? Wang Ji is the character that Kobe, Law, and Blackbeard banded together to take down back during the Rocky Port incident. And I just gotta say, but I love that we're actually seeing this character. He felt like a character that we would never see in the story, but Oda is finally bringing in the good old Wang Ji. Just unfortunate that current day he's probably going to be irrelevant. But yeah, shouts to Wang Ji. As far as Marlon the gangster goes, I'm not really too sure what to talk about when it comes to him. He just seems like a brand new character in general, so that's cool. So we see that Zbec ends up staying in Elbaf for a few years until he eventually took over Pirate Island. And I think that's fascinating. Zbec staying in Elbaf for a couple of years. Why? Was this his home base for a minute? Did him and Harald have some sort of agreement where Rox could just hide away here? Was he constantly trying to fight Harald in these Davy Jones fights to recruit him? I could totally see that. And now that we know that Zbec is a Davy Jones fight merchant, there is a chance that he could have been trying to play Harald to get Elbaf under his control. He could have been after the legendary Devil Fruit, maybe just Harald himself, or maybe even just giants as a military force. Yeah, there's a lot here, and I do wonder, what is Zbec truly here for? Because that's just me guessing. That is just me guessing. But with that being said, though, y'all, that is it for this chapter. Let me know what you thought about it down below. I think this chapter looks really freaking spicy. We've been waiting for more Zbec lore. We've been waiting for some more emu stuff. And guess what? We've been waiting for Davy Jones for 20 years, man. And we got it all in one chapter. I think the funnest part is definitely emu, because I have been getting current day One Piece sickness, where it's like, okay, I love this flashback, but I also want to see what's happening right now with Emu and the Holy Knights and Sanji and Zoro and all them. But Oda bringing Emu back in here, I'm like, okay, I got my Emu fix, right? Not just from the chapter, but also from my guy back there. Look at him, he's kind of scary. Yeah, ever since I got that plushie, I will admit, whenever I turn around, I see him from the corner of my eye. Even though I'm Asian, I could see things from a good peripheral distance. And he's kind of scary. I can't believe they actually made a freaking plushie emu. That's horrifying, dude. But anyways, hopefully you guys had a great time here. Let me know your thoughts on this chapter down below, and I will catch you guys tomorrow when the full spoilers end up dropping. Apologies if this video's late. It's almost 12 hours late, actually, because the spoilers dropped at 6 a.m. But get this, the spoilers dropped at 6 a.m. I was asleep, guys. My bad. But yeah, hopefully you guys had a great time, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.